May I have your attention, ladies and gentlemen? We are about to commence our discussion for this afternoon session. Please take a seat. Okay, let's start our afternoon session. Good afternoon, everyone. Warm welcome to all of you. And thank you for joining this session with the topic of Green Economy Strategic Plan of Economic Transformation of Indonesia. My name is Leonardo Teguh Sambodo. I'm currently the Director for Industry, Tourism, and Creative Economy from the Ministry of National Development Planning of Indonesia. I will moderate the discussion for this session, and I'm pleased to introduce you with three panelists who will share their perspective about the policy and the progresses of different initiatives related to green economy development in Indonesia. First, I would like to introduce Ms. Amalia Adininggar Widyasanti, or called Winnie, the Deputy Minister for Economic Affairs from the Ministry of National Development Planning, Republic of Indonesia. Ms. Amalia will start our session by setting the framework on how green economy can contribute to the sustainable and inclusive growth of Indonesia. She also will explain about some initiatives that have been started with regards to the economic transformation in several parts of Indonesia. Mr. Nurul Ikhwan will be the second panelist. He is the Deputy Minister for Investment Promotion from the Ministry of Investment, the Republic of Indonesia. Mr. Nurul will highlight the role of the Ministry of Investment in promoting green investment in Indonesia, together with the explanation about the potential locations and sectors that have been identified by the Ministry of Investment. And the third, last but not least, of the panelists is Mr. Toto Nugroho, the CEO of Indonesia Battery Corporation, who will update us on the development of electric vehicle battery business and how this initiative will support the acceleration of the green economy transition in Indonesia. Each panelist will be given around 10 minutes, around 15 minutes time to present, and we will continue with discussion. Without further ado, I would like to invite the podium to Ms. Amalia to present the topic. Please, Amalia.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. At this important opportunity, I would like to present to you regarding to the green economy for Indonesia's economic transformation. And I will also present to you regarding to the showcase of Bali Economic Karti transformation, that where green transformation is very heavily in the economic transformation agenda of Bali province. Next slide. So I would like to start with the question of why green economy is very urgent for Indonesia. Of course, actually, next slide, this because we would like to minimize the potential economic loss because of the climate change, and really we would like to attain our sustainable development agenda by ensuring that we will be having a sustainable economic growth in the future. So as you know that our earth temperature rise has been accelerating quite rapidly, and then resulting in the extreme weathers and disrupting natural habitats. And the other reason why we also have to really push forward green economy is because of the global sea level rise has also been accelerating. And for your information, if you look at this graph, actually this is the scenario of Indonesia's economic growth in the future for the long-term vision. But what we would like to emphasize is that the economic growth will not be accompanied of the increase of CO2 emission. But even though we are trying to put forward our economic growth, but we will not impact to the increase of CO2 emission, but we are trying to reduce the CO2 emission even though our economic growth is accelerating. So this is why it is very important for Indonesia to put forward the green economy development in our country, because we would like to have a sustainable economic growth. Next slide. So based on that reasons, Indonesia is actually would like to achieve the Indonesia's Vision 2045, escaping from the middle income trap, and aspiring to become a high-income economy by 2045, and we are now having the economic transformation strategies. The 6 economic transformation strategies that the first strategy, competitive and prosperous human resources. The second one is productive economy. And the third one that I would like to highlight here, that a green economy is an important part of Indonesia's economic transformation agenda. So without green economy in our economic transformation strategy, then we are doubt to have a sustainable economic growth, that we really ensure that green economy will be a part, an important part of Indonesia's economic transformation agenda. Next slide. I would like to now touch into the implementation of green economy in Indonesia, especially in one island of Indonesia that is very famous, which is Bali. Bali actually one of the provinces that have been has the economic transformation plan towards to become the new Bali era. What is the new Bali era? New Bali era will become green, resilience, and prosperous province in Indonesia. So what I would like to highlight here is the green aspect of Bali's economic transformation. As you know, that Bali Kerti economic transformation is actually as an integral part of the Indonesia's economic transformation. And 2 days ago, I explained in this pavilion as well that East Kalimantan, where our new capital city will be relocated, is also one of an important part of the economic transformation agenda, because we are building the 6 economic clusters in it, the new economic clusters that will be the driver of the economic activities in that area. I would like to focus on this one. How can we create a new Bali, and why we have a special agenda for Bali to become the new Bali era. Next. There is like a Bali's development challenges actually that they are facing. The most important challenges is Bali is really heavily dependent on tourism. Their economy is really about 80% of the economy is really rely on tourism. The second one is that because they have declining aquatic ecosystem, declining agricultural productivity, they also have inappropriate waste management, reduced water resources, and many development challenges that Bali is now facing. Next. When we are having the COVID-19 crisis in 2020, Bali is actually one of the provinces that really suffered from the COVID-19 crisis. Why is that? Because when Indonesia's economic growth in 2020 is only contracted by minus 2.07%, but Bali economy is really contracted by minus 9.3%. And this is the most severe impacted among the 34 provinces in Indonesia. And In 2021, while the Indonesian economy in general has been recovered and grow positively, but not Bali. Bali is still growing negatively. Bali economy still contracted in 2021, and it created another impact. The unemployment rate was increasing very rapidly from usually before the crisis, it was only 1.5%. And after the COVID-19 crisis, it rise until 5.4%. And at the end, poverty rate was increasing as well. Next. So another challenge is that facing by Bali is declining mangrove coverage in Bali that can increase the CO2 emission, increasing landfill to 15 to 25 meters, creating unhealthy environment. And also most of the energy supply in Bali is coming from fossil fuel. Next slide. So that's why Bappenas, in this case, Ministry of National Development Planning, is really addressing and put a special attention to Bali province, and we help them, support them to provide and to develop the Bali Economic Transformation Agenda. We call it the Bali Kerti economy for a new Bali era, which is green, resilient, and prosperous. Next. So with that agenda, and then we are trying to get a new Bali era, which is green, resilient, and prosperous. And we are expecting that Bali economy in 2045 will be as big, the level of GDP per capita will be similar to Spain right now. So meaning that the GDP per capita will be increasing 8 times from 2020. And for this objective, then, next slide before that. Then the economic growth have to be growing at 7.4%, and the unemployment rate will be touching down into 0.5%. For that, I would like to explain to you that this will be achieved by the 6 strategies of Bali Economic Transformation Strategy. Next slide. And we have 6 strategies for Bali. Bali Smart and Healthy, Productive Bali, Green Bali, Integrated Bali, Bali Smart Island, and the last one is Conducive Bali. Next slide. So for Green Bali, I would like to touch into the Green Bali. The strategy for achieving Green Bali is clean energy development, waste management transformation, clean transportation, climate change mitigation through green transformation, and blue economy development. So by having this transformation strategy, the long-term goal is that the carbon emission will be decreasing. The use of electric vehicle will be increasing as well. To 40% of the cars will be electric. And also the motorcycle, 100% of our motorcycles in Bali will be electrified. Next slide. So we hope that this can create green jobs by targeting creating green jobs about 50 to 100,000 permanent jobs. And last part of my presentation, I would like to give you a showcase that an example of sustainable and green tourism that we developed in Serangan Village, Bali. Next. So where is Serangan? We will see from here. Serangan Village is actually located in Bali. Can you click on it? Yeah, this is Serangan Island. And Serangan, we call it Kura-Kura Bali. And this is a great opportunity for local economic development, and the development of Kura-Kura Bali will create opportunity for the local people. So we provide and we develop master plan of sustainable tourism in Desa Serangan because we know that it can apply the green principle for a sustainable tourism, encourage collaboration, and supporting adequate funding through not only from the government, but we would like to provide a blended finance strategy that can be able to develop Desa Serangan become one of the sustainable tourism destination in Indonesia. And right now, Kura-Kura Island has been endorsed as a special economic zone for tourism and creative economy in this year. How the Desa Serangan in Bali look like now? This is Desa Serangan in Bali. And actually, they have 1,000 years temple. We call it Temple Sakanan. And they are also near the beaches. But this is not enough because we have to recover and transform the Desa Serangan to become a better and a more sustainable and greener tourism destination. So by having that master plan, we are expecting that Desa Serangan will be like this. Next slide. This is our expectation that later on, while we are transforming, then Desa Serangan will be like this. We are trying to transform and creating a better, greener tourism destination with a mangrove boardwalk. And also, we'll have jogging track and bicycle track in it with a greener area, mangrove plantation in there. And with turtle conservation in it. And Jukung area is actually Jukung, a traditional ship that's famous in Bali. And Melastis beach area will also be reformed and will be developed like this. So with that, we are trying to contribute to a greener development and sustainable development. And if you like to have a more explanation, you can download the report from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ibu Winnie, for the comprehensive presentation about how important it is for Indonesia to have the green economy strategy within the economic transformation roadmap. And with the examples that have been started in Bali and also in the Serangan village, we hope that we can scale up this opportunity by improving collaboration to support the recovery of Bali and to increase its resilience. And now I would like to invite Pak Nurul to present the second topic and to highlight how we can promote green investment in Indonesia. Time is yours, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Teguh. Terima kasih banyak. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And it is indeed a great pleasure for us to share about how Indonesia will be having a kind of program in promoting more on a green investment and sustainable investment. This has been a very long discussions between BKPM, Minister of Investment, together with Bappenas, when we are discussing about this matter, because we have to put our program and strategy should be in line with the planning that has designed by Bappenas. Because without seeing this kind of correlations, then from outside they will not see the consistency of the government of Indonesia. And to the perspective of Ministry of Investment, this will give a kind of contributions into the image before the eyes of investors. So I just would like to share with you for this 15 minutes about a perspective coming from the Ministry of Investment in order to promote green economy as a part of the economic transformation strategy. So the first that we need to share with you is about the background about these things. We know that green economy is a part of economic transformation. So it means that Indonesia, as a developing country, that we have to have a kind of design of making transformations. And these transformations, if it is then designed in the wrong design, then we are not going to achieve the goals that has already been designed. So because of this then, we would like to have a kind of opportunities as a kind of strategy of the government inviting investors to come to Indonesia that will help the government develop Indonesia as a country developing sustainability and green economy ecosystems. So this is the background of this. And why should this strategy come to our mind? Because we know that when we talk about investment, whatever the investment that you are going to do. The reason behind for you is the profit of your investment, right? And because of this, this will be determined by the market. And when we talk about the market itself, it means that market itself, it has at least three parts as the ecosystems. First is the investors, and then secondly, the support coming from the financial sectors, and then also the most important thing is the market itself. So from the Ministry of Investment, we see that market currently has been changing quite dramatically because of the understanding and awareness of protecting this planet as up until now, the only planet that could be lived for the human being. So because of this then, we know that from the financial sectors, there will not be any funding to be distributed or to be given to, let's say, for the energy sectors when they make a kind of energy power by using fossil fuel, especially by coal. That is very tough for us to find this. And also from the government or country, we know that like European Union, for example, so they are going to implement the policy that the importations of goods come to European Union area will be added by the import tax, for example. If then the product will give contributions of carbon into the atmosphere. So it means that there will not be any image that you have to produce something that in terms of price will be very competitive. It used to be something that will be vanished. The new one is how green your process of productions that will determine your future of market. And now, even based on the research in Indonesia, the market of Indonesia, based on McKinsey research, it is already showing that more than 80% of the market of Indonesia, and especially for the young generations, they are willing to pay the goods and services that is much more expensive or expensive as long as this will protect the environment. And it is not only happen in Indonesia, it is happen in all over the world. So it means that if you are not going to produce your thing without support of the green technology and green strategy, it means that your product will not be absorbed by the market. And now we know that because of this, then Indonesia is thinking about what would be the opportunities that we could open and what will be the strong support coming from the government. On the slide 10, so this shows that how Indonesia having a very strong commitment on this green economy. So it is started from UNFCCC that was happened in December 2015. That time we have a kind of commitment to reduce the greenhouse gas. And it is also for Indonesia already mandated by law number 16, 2016. So it means that it is a must for Indonesia to implement this. And we plan that we are going to have around 29% by our own capability, but we are going to make it higher, 41%, if it is with international assistance by 2030. So this agenda match with the SDGs. So it means that when we talk about green economy as a part of economic transformations and SDGs, they are not different things. They have interlinked correlations for this. So because of this, then, the SDGs itself is a kind of responsibility all countries around the globe. It is not only responsibility of developed countries, it is not only responsibilities of developing countries, it is not responsibility only those who are very rich countries, and also vice versa. So this kind of thing is the global responsibility of us. So because of this, then, the transformations that is based on green technology and economy, it is a must of us as a kind of prerequisites in order to reach the SDGs. So without doing so, it is almost sure that the SDGs will have a kind of destinies like MDGs that was failed. So because of this, then, transfer of technology, transfer of capital, and giving also equal rules between the developed and developing countries is a must for us. So it is about the time for us to work together. Those who are having natural resources, then they have to be helped by those who are having technology and capital. Because we are talking about the global and the planet where we are living. It is not about your country, it is not about my country. It is about where we are living now and in the future. Because of this then, now in Indonesia, we have the opportunity to do so. Slide 20. Yeah. So because Indonesia is a country that is very, I don't know whether or not all of you have already known about Indonesia, where it is situated. Yes, this one. So, Indonesia, based on this data, Indonesia and Brazil, we have 15% of our natural climate solutions. Because we have rainforests, we have tropical forests that produce 15% of our contributions into the oxygens for our planets. So it means that without doing anything, Indonesia contributed already 50% to the global. So it means that you don't have to pay this for us. We produce oxygen for you, then you don't have to pay, right? But then when we are talking about green economy, when we talk about greenhouse gases, it should be in apple-to-apple contributions. If you count on the contributions into carbon, why should you not count on the oxygen? It's not fair. You keep polluting the world, we keep producing oxygen, right? But you don't pay us. So, of course, we are not going to charge you for every single breath that you take. But the thing that we would like to show you that Indonesia is playing very significant role in making the sustainability of this planet. And in the options of opportunities, so we have also tropical forests. We are the third largest tropical forest in the world. And when we talk about mangrove, because Indonesia is archipelagical country, and because of this, and we have a very long coastal line that we could utilize this for making mangrove. And then also peatlands, we are #1 in the world. These three at least, a kind of capital that we have in order to offer to all investors that we could utilize all of these opportunities to do investment. So because of this then, we could make this kind of investment. So this is Indonesia carbon economic future of the future. So it means that we could have a kind of production, 48 billion ton of CO2 potentials, and we could have also 20 million hectares of idle productive forests that we could utilize as well in order to make a kind of reboisations. And then also, for this all, the revenue that it could be created, not less than 565.9 billion. But something that is very critical for Indonesia, it is under the perspective of Ministry of Investment. For the technology-wise, we do understand that maybe in the near future, at least by 2030, the technology that will be advanced will take over of the problem that we are having now that will be only taken by solutions of carbon trading. So when we have the carbon asset, this could be traded only by, let's say, 2030. Because after that, the technology advancements will produce something without carbon footprint. So Indonesia is very critical in promoting this. The investors is also having the role that is very critical. So we are going to save this planet by doing investment in Indonesia with this all potential. Bring your technology, bring your capital. We are going to provide this all things for you, and we are all going to do the best thing for our planet, for our next generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Nurul, and it is an encouraging presentation on how we can further strengthen the collaboration. It's not about you and I, but it's us. Okay, thank you. And now, last but not least, I would like to invite Pak Toto to update us about the role of Indonesia Battery Corporation in developing the electric vehicle battery. And maybe Pak Toto also can highlight what will be the contribution in the future on how this ultimate goal can also support the Indonesia target in achieving net zero development. Pak Toto.
Thank you very much, Pak Teguh. Ladies and gentlemen, Pak Nurul, Bu Winnie. So I will update what has been going on in terms of the real sectors where we are going in terms of the EV batteries and EV ecosystem development in Indonesia. I think this is one of the most exciting development that we have in the country, I guess, since the last decade. First, a little bit introduction to IBC. IBC, the Indonesian Battery Corporation, we are a state-owned enterprise company, and we are owned by 4 major SOE. One is the MindID, Antam. They work in the mineral side of the ecosystem. And the other one is Pertamina and PLN. Pertamina is the energy oil and gas company, and PLN is the state electricity company. And we are working as more of a strategic investors, where we do strategic holding, where we have this cooperation to build the JVs that is developing the EV batteries and EV ecosystem. So you can see that the vision is something that is really big vision in terms that we want to be the world-class player for the EV battery production and the EV ecosystem. Some people might say, how can you be so confident, Pak Toto? How will you do this? One of the things that is going on for Indonesia is that we have resources, nickel. This is one of the largest resources in Indonesia, in the world, I guess. We have, I think, 24% of the world resource for nickel. And what we're trying to do now is actually to have this first one, is to maximize the value through an end-to-end cooperation from the upstream to the downstream. So that's one of the things that we are doing currently. Second is to proactively shape the Indonesian EV ecosystem, because it's not just about the supply of the batteries, but we also need to move on the demand side. And third is continuously build capabilities, because one of the things that we are lacking is the technology part, because these technologies are something which is very advanced, and we need to have the adoption of technology. And number 4 is also very important. We are not just producing the batteries in Indonesia, but we aim for Indonesia to become the EV production hub for EV batteries and EV cars ecosystem in the ASEAN region. And of course, here we are in Davos, that we really need to see how to collaborate with global partners in the development of EV battery ecosystem. This is a brief background. We're a very young company, just 1.5 years, but again, we'll show you the development that we are currently doing and what we can foresee in the next 5 or 6 years. So as we mentioned, the one that we can enable this in Indonesia to have this EV battery production is the capability to develop end-to-end, meaning that we have the resources, but we want to have partners that is willing to invest not just on the upstream side, but all the way to the downstream. So we say, hey, partner, we'll give you the upstream, part of the upstream, and then, but you need to develop the downstream industry here in Indonesia. So as you can see, maybe when this is a new area for me also, right? I've been oil and gas guy for the last 20 years, but in order to produce a battery, an EV battery, is not an easy process. It needs to come from the mining side, and we need to do the smelting first. And then after that, we do the battery chemicals, there's the precursors, and actually the cells. And then what is good something for us is that we can recycle the material going back into the precursor side. And as you can see, by doing this, the investment is quite huge. For us to develop around 45 gigawatt hour of production, investment is close to about 16 billion US. And we aim to be one of the largest battery producers in 2027, because as you can see, we utilize the capacity of our mining in a quite extensive way, about 33 million ton per annum. And as you can see, maybe if you follow the news, that we are working with number 1 and number 2 global EV battery producers. So this is one of the key aspects, is that the end-to-end cooperation with the EV battery players. So a little bit more on what's going on the domestic side in terms of the EV batteries that we foresee going forward. We can see currently it's still, in terms of demand, it's quite low. But because of the government push, because of the incentives, and because of the market development, we can foresee the growth is very high, about 23% CAGR. And this is in line with the world's development in EV market that is developing about 15 to 20% per year. And as you can see, the main components is the four wheels EV and the two wheels EV. You can see the projection total about 60 gigawatt hour. We have about 38 gigawatt in the four wheels and around 3.2, sorry, in the 14.2 gigawatts in the, we call EMCs, the two wheels. But that equates to around 400,000 EV cars and about 3 to 2 million EV motorcycles. The other one, which is critical for Indonesia, is also, sorry, is also the ESS, because the ESS, the energy storage system, is essential to have, thank you, Pat. Yeah, thank you. To have the integration with our renewable projects, because in Indonesia we will have a lot of renewable development in the future, and this is where batteries is also important. We'll share the developments of the major developments that has been on. First, we can see the actual development in the downstream side. Here we can see that we have already engaged with LG Consortium, and they have produced the first, it's working with us, of course, the first gigafactory in ASEAN, and this is one of the biggest investment in terms of EV battery. The investment is around 1 billion US, and I'm happy to also to update the progress that the construction now is almost 80% complete, and we'll be able to produce the EV battery from these facilities in 2024. And as you can see, the 10 gigawatt battery factories, this is equates to around 300 to 400,000 four wheels EV per year. One thing that I also like to mention, why this investment is important. Not only this is investing in terms of the production of the EV battery, but it is integrated with the EV cars production with Hyundai. So this is cooperation between LG, Hyundai, and IBC. So it's not just producing and exporting the batteries, but it is consumed and also produced the EV cars Hyundai. Mainly, if you are in Indonesia, it's the Ioniq 5, and next, I think, is coming up the Ioniq 6. The other one that we have also secured in terms of cooperation, by the way, we have what we call the framework agreement with both CATL and LG last April. And this is a very good update. Just 2 weeks ago, we finalized the contract with the CATL for the mining side, and this is the start from the mining actually going to all the downstream, and they are committed. CATL is the biggest EV producers in the world. They are committed to around $6 billion of investment in Indonesia. And again, one of the things which makes this investment sustainable is that the smelting, refining, all these facilities that requires electricity will need to use the green energy, gas and renewable. And we also have the recycling. This is very exciting because all the spent batteries can be recycled back into the system, so we are not polluting the environment with the spent batteries. So this was just last week, and it was actually signed in front of Bahlil directly. Nurul was there, I think so. And it's really a milestone for Indonesia in terms of doing this. So we have secured the downstream investment from LG, and also from the upstream, we are securing with CATL. And I think this is a key breakthrough for us, for Indonesia as a nation, to have this investment in Indonesia. Now, that's from the, I can update you, that was from the supply side. But what is also important is from the demand side. In Indonesia, I think there are more motorcycles than people in Switzerland. We have 120 million motorcycles in Indonesia. And currently, most of all of these are the internal combustion, the normal motorcycle. But the government and we are committed that we will try, of course, in terms of conversion of these two wheels motorcycles going into the EV. As you can see here, 30% by 2030. So by 2023, there will be close to around 1 million EV motorcycles that we need to develop. This is, of course, a very challenging task. But again, this is also something that we need to do to have this kind of renewable green energy that we are going to pursue. You can see that in terms of cooperation possibilities, there are a lot of investment that needs to be, of course, having with the partner. The investment you can see is close more than 2 billion US in terms of developing this infrastructure. Here's our president, Pak Jokowi. We have a portfolio of two-wheels EV already in Indonesia. We call it Gesit. It's been in production since 3 years ago, and it's been one of the most, I think, iconic two-wheels EV that we produce. This is one of our portfolio, and that's why we want to integrate actually from the supply side and with the demand side. So this we'll hope this is one of the, because this is all Indonesian production, local content is close to over than 50%. Some of the batteries will need to be imported, but in short term, we will have the production from Indonesia itself, and we really want to push this EV ecosystem as one of the prime movers in terms of having this conversion from the ICE to the two-wheels EV. There are other, of course, in the battery side, as I mentioned before, the ESS for the renewable. The potential is also very big in the ESS for the electricity for renewables, around 2.2 gigawatt potential capacities that we need to convert from the old diesel generators, mostly for the eastern part of Indonesia. We have also several initiatives in terms of doing the green port ecosystem using the ESS, and for the transportation side from even some of the trains that we have, we are currently installing a pilot project to do the conversion from some of the auxiliary power usage. One thing that I would like to add, as you can see from previous presentation, there was really, we are developing our new capital. And the new capital concept will be all green. Of course, there will be green electricity, but all EVs. And if you really put the numbers, these are the magnitudes of EV that needs to be in place. You can see the number for the buses is close to 3,000, the e-ride hailing close to 10,000, and the other one is the two wheels, close to 100,000 requirements that we need. And of course, to do all of this, it will require a huge amount of battery demand for the swapping station, for the charging, and the battery for the two wheels EV, sorry, for the ESS. In terms of timeline, as you can see, 2022, 2023, we will concentrate on the two wheels EV ecosystem production. In 2024, we will first have our first production EV battery of a gigafactory in Indonesia. 2025, this will be one of the also very important where we can produce our own cathode. And 2026 is actually when we have those cells that we can produce. So it's a long journey. You cannot really produce cells directly from the nickel in a fast manner. But this is the roadmap that we are currently committing to. And as you can see, by 2030, we will have the complete, we want to have the complete technology in terms of how to produce in the entire value chain. Now, I guess if those are the slides that we can say in terms of the introduction to IBC and what has been going on and where we are going to. But this slide is very important, not for IBC itself. This is important for Indonesia as a nation, ASEAN as a region. One, of course, when we have this kind of initiative in terms of the green EV and the batteries, the CO2 emission, we have calculated that by using the 30% conversion, equates to about 9 million tons per annum of CO2 emission. The other one is important in Indonesia. Not many people know we import oil and gas in such a big quantity. Almost 1 year, we import more than $25 billion worth of oil and gas. By using conversion to EV, using local electricity, of course, we can reduce this import around to about 29 million barrels per year, and that's around 5 to 6 billion US dollar per year. The other one is the GDP potential, because when we do the investment, there will be a lot of multiplier effect. And we have calculated this independently by consultants that the impact's up to around 300 billion US in terms of impact of the multiplier aspect. And again, for us, I guess talking here, which is important, is another investment opportunities of close to over 25 billion up to 2027 that we need. Because again, to summarize, this is a big really challenge for Indonesia, but it's a very important challenge, and we, IBC, are fully committed to do the end-to-end production of EV batteries, and by using the cooperation that we have, the events such as here that we are coordinated by BKPM to do all the investments, to have the all investment meetings, and also because we do need every help that we can get in these terms of investment, technology, and know-how. And hopefully, by showcasing this, we can help really Indonesia and also the world that turning to EV ecosystem, it's something that we can really do to create really a green economic sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Toto. Now it's come to the discussion session. I would like to invite the three speakers to come to the stage. We have, and thank you also for the speakers for very prompt presentation. Now we have around 12 minutes for Q&A. I can take 3 questions. The first one is the gentleman right there.
I'd like to ask, one you haven't mentioned specifically the role of the. I'd like to, I'm sorry. My name is Hassan Fattah. I'm from Crescent Petroleum. And one of the things we've been very interested in is the Just Energy Transition Partnership. And it sounds like it's in the background of all of this. I wanted to get a sense of how that works and how it's fitting into all of your plans, number one. And also, what can other countries learn from your experience with that?
Okay. Siapa yang mau menjawab? So, Pak Nurul.
Okay. Right, thank you. Thank you for the questions. I'm going to be helped by the slide number 13. Ada nggak slide number? Sorry, the operator is not. Sorry, it's the operator. Right, so it means that we have a kind of design about how we be the roadmap of our transformations of the energy to the green energy, because it is already planned by the government that we are not going to develop new power generations that will be using coal, especially, but only for those who has already signed the contract, or it is already constructed, the construction is already there. So it means that the balance will be developed by using new and renewable energy. So that's the thing. So this is a kind of contributions that we have. So it means that based on our planning that the renewable energy, this will play around 52% of the contributions. And from this 52%, if we just try to make a kind of more breakdown on it, so this will be dominated by hydro, 23%, and then also followed by a solar panel, and then geothermal, because for geothermal, as we are a country that lies on ring on fire, so it means that it is abundant of availability for us for this geothermal. But we know that for geothermal, the initial cost for developing this power generation is very expensive. But then after that, the maintenance is very, very low if it is none. So that's the combinations of the energy that we would like to have. And for this, for the total investment value that we would like to have, the combinations between the fossil energy and then also the renewable energy, actually we could see here that a total about 83 billion US dollars from 2021 to 2030. But if you are asking about the projects themselves, then you need to check with the Ministry of Energy or the PTPLN, the institutions that state-owned enterprises that has the implementations of the policy designed by the government. All right, that's about the program of the electrifications of changing or transformations our energy to the more renewable energy. Did I
And
answer
for
your
the
questions?
second question, who would you like to answer about how other countries can learn from the experience from Indonesia?
Thank you very much. There is like one, adding to what Pak Nurul mentioned, that we also have a target of energy transition, or we call it the renewable energy mix. So in 2025, the target is 23% of renewable energy mix in our total energy. So if you would like to learn from Indonesia, actually, if you know that we have a biodiesel program that is quite successful. We have 30% of the diesel is actually mixed with the biodiesel coming from our palm oil. And then what Pa Nurul also mentioned, that we have trying, especially in our new capital city, we are trying to supply the energy using the hydropower, which is less, it is a renewable energy anyway, and also some of the power plant will be supplied by, we are trying also to go to another types of renewable energy sources. Again, we have to learn from others. Indonesia also have to learn from other countries that is also quite advanced in, doing the just transition. The thing is, what I would like to highlight here, that to do the energy transition is not talking about the energy transition, but we have to talk about just energy transition that can be more inclusive, and then have a low cost of it. But the thing is that just energy transition is actually what Indonesia would like to achieve. Thank you.
Boleh tambahin nggak, Pak?
Boleh.
Yeah. So we are still facing a kind of challenge, because for talking about energy, we are still in a kind of, you may say, serious issue about availability, affordability, and also sustainability for this energy to be provided in Indonesia. But then the most important thing for us is trying to do something. When we talk about energy, it is not only depending on transforming from the fossil fuel to the renewable energy, but doing something that could also reduce the carbon footprints that we have. And one of example that could be imitated by other countries, maybe, so like the downstream industry that we have. And one of the example of this is having a kind of the ecosystem of EV battery. If we just compare between fossil fuel for car and we change as it is with battery, this will reduce 40% of carbon footprint. Regardless, the electricity for this battery comes from renewable or non-renewable energy. But at least by changing itself only, 40% of the carbon footprint will be reduced. So this is something that will be done by the government of Indonesia. And I guess when we talk about this downstreaming industry as well, we ban, the export of ore for nickel. And it is also something in our effort that we would like to have the technology to come to Indonesia, so then we are not going to be a country producing only ore for this, but we would like to learn that producing something that will be greener to be happen in Indonesia, so that we could have a kind of ecosystem. Of course, it is reasonable for a country having not less than 270 million populations that we have to have a significant contributions in reducing carbon footprint.
Thank you, Pak Nurul. Pak Toto? Oh, cukup. Okay, thank you. Now I would like to take the second question, if there any. Professor Ricardo.
Very, very interesting. Let me ask you, the world is going to be trying to decarbonize. And for the world to decarbonize, it's going to need many things. And it's going to not want to buy other things. That creates opportunities for countries, because there are going to be some things that are going to have their demand grow very quickly. How does Indonesia plan to support world decarbonization by supplying the world with the means to decarbonize? Because you mentioned that you're going to prohibit nickel exports, but you still don't have the full capacity for batteries. But I can imagine a world where you can supply all the nickel for all your batteries that are going to be used mainly for your own cars and motorcycles. But the world is going to need nickel, And you could potentially expand nickel mining beyond the amount that you could be transforming locally. But that's just one example. There might be other examples of things that you could be providing the world, and that could be your source of export growth and diversification going forward.
Thank you, Professor Osman.
Yeah.
Nurul.
Thank you, Professor Ricardo. Yeah, so when we see this kind of what Indonesia could contribute in order to do the decarbonizations, and many, even European Union brought us into the WTO, right? And as I did mention that, when we see a kind of downstream industry, it should be seen as a kind of complex strategy that finally could be a kind of strategy of Indonesia in contributing of significant contributions of Indonesia to the world. So I did mention as well that when we talk about this downstreaming industry, it is a part of strategy of Indonesia in giving contributions into the achievement of SDGs in 2030. So we learn that when we talk about contribution to SDGs, it is almost impossible if you don't have enough capital and capacity to do so. So now we have only raw materials. And when we export only raw materials, the contributions into the economy that will be distributed to not less than 270 million people, the fourth biggest populous country in the world, with a very limited capital. So we are going to be standstill as poor country. Now we are thinking about the raw materials that we have. It should be having contributions into added value. So then these values will be redistributed into our people. Without doing so, when we are still having a very significant poverty, so forget about SDGs. Forget about the SDGs. Bullshit. So we are going to do ourselves on our foods, with our richness of our natural resources. We would like to work together with the capital owner, with the technology owner. Let's do together in order to achieve that SDGs for the country having more than 270 million populations. Otherwise, we are going to still left behind, Professor, for this. Right.
Thank you, Pak Nurul. Pak Toto, would you like to comment on that?
I'll try to view this from the industrial point of view that we are currently working in terms of the EV battery in the world. I think in terms of us, it's very important to know what's the EV global supply chain is, right? As you know, the main consumers will be currently in the ASEAN region, sorry, the European region, the China, and also in the US. Now, again, we could always export our nickel, again, but that at a lower value. But for us to play our role in the global EV supply chain, that's where we want our conversion to be. Because we are not going to export all the batteries from Indonesia. There will be nickel sulfates, there will be cathodes or anodes, which at this point in time is needed by the global supply chain. So we study what the global supply chain for EV battery is and where Indonesia fits in. At this point in time, again, we will not export everything in form of batteries. We will export some in nickel sulfates, cathodes, and anodes. And this, again, we will not export purely nickel, right? But certain materials that is needed by the global supply chain. And I guess this is very important because, as you know, other countries will want to do downstreaming also, right? South Americans, they want downstreaming. African, they want downstreaming. But to what extent, we need to see where the global value chain is. And we know our position that we can supply most of the materials going into what we call the battery materials. We will have internal demand for the battery itself in Indonesia. But the battery materials that we will export, it's in a form where it's much more valuable than the nickel that we currently have, and it will bring us very good economic impact for the people of Indonesia. So hopefully that also adds on that what we're doing is not we're going to be the dominant player of the EV batteries in the world. We will do that step by step, but at this point in time, we really need to make sure where our position is in the global EV supply chain fits on that, and then we do the downstreaming appropriately down the line. Because we cannot fight the global supply chain, but we will do our part, but in the mind of getting first the people of Indonesia interest to be more, getting more value and getting more increased multiplier effect from the investment. Hopefully that adds something.
Thank you, Pak Toto. Bu Winnie?
Yes, just additional one, Professor Ricardo, that this is one of our effort to improve the complexity of our economy, because as you know that Indonesia is trying to move from the comparative advantage into the competitive advantage by improving the complexity of the products and adopting the technology from China and from other countries. So with that, this is actually one of an example that we can industrialize, do the better industrialization process, and we can learn from one province. We call it Morowali, Professor Ricardo. That in Morowali there is like a industrial complex of a nickel value chain until the battery, and then before we have that industrial complex, the share of manufacturing industry to GDP is just probably less than 10%. But now, while having that kind of industrial complex, the share of manufacturing to GDP increasing until 30%, just only within 10 years. So I think this is one of a good example that with that industrialization process, the GDP growth of that area is increasing double digit because of the industrialization process, and the economy become more complex and more resilient to the crisis during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is a proof for us. We can learn not only from other countries, but we can also learn from the province that have been successful in doing the industrialization and improve the complexity of the economy.
Thank you very much. I can take one more question. Last question of this session. If there are any burning question? No. I think now I would like to ask each of the speaker to provide some conclusion for each of your presentation about the topic of today's discussion about how green economy can support the Indonesian economic transformation. Start with Pak Nurul.
All right, thank you. So I guess something that we would like to share, our presence in Davos is actually just to show about the policy coming from the government side, and also all the strengths that we have. But this strength and policy will not be possible to be implemented without our cooperations. So for this time, we are going to be able to work with you with whatever the strengths that we have, but we would like also to sit side by side with you to do something better that will give contributions justly to Indonesia and to the world, so we could make the world better in the future.
Thank you, Pak Nurul. Pak Toto.
I think one of the key learning points that we see from the Indonesian side, one, there needs to be a clear and consistent policy that needs to be really in place. But in order to do execution, then you go into the actual business side. So all the policy that has been given needs to be commercially executable. If we don't have that, then all will be just policies. And the other one is, again, the third one is cooperation. When we're talking to the big investors, such as CATL, as LG, we need cooperation with them. We cannot do this alone. We need other nations, we need other technology, we need other support from the financing to do all of this. So for us is to have the policy, to have the climate of business, and also the cooperation. And this is very important, where we do showcase this kind of engagement, that we really need to help the global community to help us. and let Indonesia, by creating this kind of ecosystem, EV ecosystem, green solution, to also help the global world. I think this is very important for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ibu Winnie?
We learned from the crisis that the world is transforming. So meaning that Indonesia has also have to be transformed, but in a more inclusively and in a more sustainable way. With that, Indonesia would like to contribute to the world. We would like to contribute to a better world. We would like to contribute to the sustainable agenda of the world. So that's why we are trying to really put forward the green economy agenda to really contribute to the transforming world to become a better world for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Winnie. And for that, I conclude this session. Thank you again for all the speakers for the insightful discussion. Stay safe and healthy and enjoy Davos. Thank you.